This is Marc Glassman for the Real Artists Film Festival. I'm speaking to Michael Kainer, the director of Patron Saint, which is taking place. It will be having its Canadian premiere at the Real Artists Film Festival, March 26th to 28th at TIFF Bell Lightbox. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
So your film is about Janos Duška, a very interesting character in his own right, as an art collector, a psychologist, a former politician, a very interesting figure. How did you meet him to begin with?
I met Janusz in the early 70s when I was a law student at Parkdale Community Legal Service, and he was the local MPP. He was a psychiatrist at Queen Street Mental Health Center, but also a member of the legislature in Stephen Lewis's caucus. So I worked on one of his campaigns back in the early 70s, and 20 years later, I was a practicing lawyer, and Janusz was the head of an association of doctors in the public service, in effect the union for the doctors who were employed in mental health facilities around Ontario. And he needed some legal advice, and I happened to know something about the area, so they called me in, and I reconnected with Janusz. But the connection to the film and the art came even later than that. I got to know him a little bit through doing this legal work. He invited me and my wife to his apartment for dinner. I walked in and I said, "My God, this is unbelievable. Has anybody thought of doing a film about you and your art?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I'm not really a professional filmmaker, but I know a little bit, and I'd be game to try if you are." And he said, "Let's do it." So we did.
Maybe you could describe, I've been lucky enough to have been in the apartment myself. Maybe you could describe what the apartment is like.
It's probably every interior decorator's nightmare. there is there is not a surface which is not covered with a rug, a tapestry, a photograph, a piece of ornate furniture, a sculpture, or a painting. Books line all the shelves. The books are 2 and 3 layers deep in some places, and so are the photographs. He's got them on sliders so that he can see the portrait of the day with himself in it, and then the next day switch it around by moving the slider. So he's got multiple layers to his personality and multiple layers to his apartment, and you have to kind of search in both to find the truth.
I guess this leads us to his art project, if you will, because Janos has been, as you say, a patron saint, in that he's given quite a bit of money to local artists to do paintings. But of course, there's something really original about what those paintings, the subject of those paintings. Perhaps you could elaborate.
Yeah, his art collection is quite big, I'm told. I'm sure I have not seen even half of it because his apartment, which is fairly modest, doesn't hold everything. He's got several hundred works, I understand, but there is a theme to his work in his apartment, and you quickly realize that when you're sitting there that the theme is him. There's various estimates as to the number of works, the portraits done of him. He himself has used the numbers 85, 86, 90, 98, and 100, and I've heard other artists who have done his portrait or have collected his work or whatever say the number is somewhere between 80 and 120. So there's a large number, let's put it that way.
And these paintings are in quite different sorts of varieties, aren't they?
Yeah, when people ask me, what are you doing these days? And I say I'm doing this film about a guy with all these portraits, I think everybody kind of thinks of the Queen on the Canadian stamp, that kind of a portrait. In fact, Janusz is sometimes portrayed in a straightforward bust-like fashion, but for the most part he is not. He is portrayed in a variety of kind of historical modes, religious themes. He likes being portrayed with other people, members of his family, friends of his. Sometimes he has his clothes off. So there's a variety of ways in which he is portrayed. And these works are, in case anybody doubts that this is a serious enterprise, these works are beautiful. Some of them are massive. I expect some of them are extremely valuable these days. They're done by people who were not necessarily known when Janusz first commissioned them to do his portrait. They are now well-known people, and so they become valuable works on top of being dramatic and beautiful things. So it's an amazing collection of artifacts.
A lot of your film takes place at the opening at UTAC, at the University of Toronto Art Center, where there was a huge retrospective, I guess, or display of the work of Janusz. How did you come to be there filming it, and what was your reaction during that evening?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I said earlier, I asked Janusz after I visited his apartment for the first time if I could try to do a documentary about him and the works, and he said yes. And in the course of the next few months, I discovered that, in fact, a group of his friends were trying to organize a show of the portraits at the University of Toronto Art Center. And so I asked them if I could attend a couple of their organizational meetings and film them discussing the merits of doing the show, not doing the show, what should be in it, the logistics, those sorts of things. And part of that shows up in the film.
Do you feel in the end that you've gotten to understand this very interesting, original, and very complex character?
He's still a bit of a mystery. And one of the things I was conscious of and try to be careful about was doing too much psychoanalyzing of him myself. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychoanalyst, and as you point out, when I was trying to figure out what motivated the guy, I from time to time sort of felt I was putting myself in the analyst's role, which is not really what I should have been doing. So I would step back from that, and I think I covered an awful lot of ground, but I don't think I ever really penetrated to the deep down Janusz, what he really is all about. And I'm not sure very many people have, including himself. Right? I mean, psychoanalysts are people who have to understand themselves before they can understand other people.
Congratulations! It's a wonderful first feature. We'll be looking forward to showing it and seeing it with an audience at the Real Artists Film Festival, which takes place March 26th to 28th at TIFF Bell Lightbox. I've been speaking to Michael Kainer. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks very much.